Y'all remember this video right here? Yeah, that one. We're doing it again. Although I'm naturally a very angry person by nature, nothing boils my pot, I guess, more than people who think they know things on 1218. Now, there's a lot of people out here that know quite a bit about the big lad. I'm not saying everybody's a idiot, but I'm going to say everybody's a idiot. Because, well, I can. I don't care about feelings, except for those of VMT and the NWHS, but that's besides the point. I love them, and they relatively love me. Anyways. Sorry, I'm sick. That's besides the point. I'm doing this while sick. I really don't care. This is very unscripted. This is going to be an angry rant. We know this is coming. Y'all remember that video? The video I made about, give or take 2 years ago. The one with the stupid voiceover shit that I couldn't do because I didn't have a microphone at the time. Yeah, that. First of all, I'm going to just come out and say it. Why the hell does that have 22,000 views as of recording this current video? Why? It's a 5-minute video. I know so much more than I did then. It's not that good. I've really debated just getting rid of it. Why in the world do y'all think it's like the omniscient of the Class A 1218? I don't get it. It gathered a lot of attention. It boomed my channel. I'm very appreciative of that. I love having viewership of things that I care about like this, like the 1218. And it definitely got, I think, VMT's attention a little bit. I don't know if it did or not, actually. I'll have to ask them. I don't think it really did. But it did really boom the channel. I'm really happy about that. But at the same time, it is so outdated. So we're going to go and we're going to do this shit again. By God, because I have nothing else better to really damn do. So sit back and enjoy an angry man ranting about his favorite locomotive. Here we go. So we all know who the big old turd is on the screen. We all know who it is. If you don't know who it is, that's Norfolk Western Class A number 1218, the last 2664 left standing in the world. If you accidentally found this video and don't know literally anything about the 1218 or just about how I operate in general, you're in for a wild treat today if you can't already tell. So, of course, I know more about the locomotive now and how things go down now than I did almost 3 years ago. I looked at that when I was editing. That's almost 3 years ago. Holy anyways. Yeah. So, I know a lot more than I did then. Because, let's be real, I was an idiot then. I was stupid as all balls. I know a lot more. It is not a feasible outcome unless Norfolk Southern or a major railway gets involved. Just going to shoot into the ground right there with a 45 caliber pistol or something. I'm gonna put you down right then and there. It's not possible unless Norfolk Southern steps in, just straight out the gate. And today we're going to explain why. Because mostly. It's currently 7 a.m. I've not slept. I do not care. I have rage in my body. This is the way we're going to deal with it today. So, hi, how y'all doing? Good morning. This is terrible when I'm not scripted, isn't it? This is awful. Nah, I don't care. So 1218, the poor 120 odd foot long bastard, will not be seeing steam anytime soon, mostly due to Norfolk Southern. VMT, in their infinite big brain wisdom, and if you can't tell if that's sarcasm, then I feel bad for you. But as I said before, I love VMT with all my heart, even though sometimes they're not the most intelligent on the planet. But when is anybody? So, back to what I was saying. In their infinite big brain wisdom, as the great Markiplier had put it, this is big brain time. I don't even remember if there's their fall or not, but Norfolk Southern ultimately wanted the 1218. Sorry for hearing the microphone mount. I'm moving it a little bit. They wanted 1218 back in 2013 for the new Steam program, I think. If I remember correctly, that's what it was. They wanted it at least in an operational state in case they ever wanted to use it. I don't know if they actively wanted it in service like 611, but I do know there were a few things underneath the public eye that happened involving the fat and I'm gonna call him the fat a few separate times. It's gonna be bleeped out. You can't hear it, but for those who know, they know what I'm calling it. But there's a few things under the table that I either learned auxiliarily, however the hell you say that. I'm Appalachian, I can't English well, or I just heard from ear. Now this could be totally incorrect. I've never confirmed or denied this with VMT, and even if I tried to, I don't think they would tell me this. But from what I heard, just through the grapevine over time, over the past give or take 3 years, is that in 2013 something happened underneath the table, under public eye between Norfolk Southern and VMT, involving fat being 1218, and Norfolk Southern wanted it at least in a able to be steamed up operational status in case they wanted it for what would become the 21st century Steam program, i.e. they were trying to return to form like they were in the 1980s, basically, because they had 765, they had 611 upcoming, and they had the two Southern brothers from Chattanooga, 611, not 611, but 630 and 4501. And they could have gotten countless other things that they wanted to. But that's what I've been told. From what I know, I don't really know what happened with the money that Norfolk Southern kind of slid them. I don't know how much it was. I think it was somewhere about $2 million. That's my guesstimate at best. But that was slid to them to help get the fat to a able to be steamed up operational status. Not for, say, under Steam, but able to be fired up if need be. From what I know, that never came to be. And 1218 has just sat there in the same state it has been for 35, 36 odd years. I don't know anything else outside of that part for that in particular. It could be entirely wrong. I don't know. I just happened to hear it through the grapevine that we call the internet. It is a beautiful and very, very vile place. When I heard that initially when I heard that, my poor friend group, which some of them are also on YouTube, or at least they were. I don't know if they are now. But I know they're watching this, and they know who they are. You all heard an earful that day, and you damn well know it. That was a bad day for everybody. I was ready to strangle Norfolk Southern. I was ready to storm into their offices and strangle the absolute bollocks out of them. But I didn't, because that's illegal. And I was raised better than that, mostly. Hi, Mother, I know you're watching this. I am so sorry. But yeah, I learned about that. Let's just say I was not a very happy bean. A very fat, angry bean. Let's be real with you. I'm 300 pounds. A little bit too much information there. I'm sorry. But, that's besides the point. I was angry at that. And so, that incentivized me to dig deeper. Because by that time, that video was give or take 15,000 views. It was still growing when I learned that. And so I dug deeper on fat and I found a lot more than I had bargained for. I learned, my brain, my humongous brain grew bigger. I became big brain time, okay? About this fat of a locomotive. Okay? So I'm going to dive a bit deeper into the mechanical reasons why it would take Norfolk Southern only to bring it back, and then more so the VMT reasons why it can't be brought back by VMT by themselves at least, and just give or take the whole situation with fat. So that was just a part of it that I initially learned that got me going back into it. That's all that really was. But I think we're going to focus on the mechanical part first. So let's let's dive into that, shall we?
1218 is in a rather weird state mechanically, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of weird things that have went around this large fat fuck of a locomotive. And sorry if I sound different this time around, it's because I'm recording this a week and a half later after I recovered from sickness and now have what feels like an ear infection, but probably is not an ear infection, so I can barely hear right now. So we're going to move on from that. But back to 1218. It's in a weird. It's always been in a weird spot mechanically since it was retired in 1991. It's always had this weird aura around it that things are constantly missing from it and or will go missing from it over time. In reality, that's not so much the case, especially in more recent years by VMT doing minor cosmetic work to it and making the fat fuck look beautiful and schmexy and all that, jazz, And from the last visit I did, or the first visit I did to Roanoke, when I went to Roanoke last year in March and saw the fat fuck for the first time with my own eyes, they were still working on the rod set for painting the rods like they had planned to. It was the front right driver's side they were still working on. I don't know if that's finished now. I'm praying to God it is, because that'll leave it in a worse condition than they found it, basically, and that's not a good thing. But people have this weird conception that there's a bunch of parts missing from 1218. In reality, not a lot is missing. Just a lot of it's so outdated that it could not be used in a restoration if it was ever to come to that. A lot of it's more so rusted over than normal. You can't really use a lot of it. I don't know a lot of the internal aspects of what is still in 1218. I don't know if 1218 even has boiler tubes inside the boiler at this point. I would not initially think so for the sake of storage reasons and for the sake that it's on display. I wouldn't personally think so. I would say those are probably stored somewhere else if they have them at all. I would agree that those are probably not there, at least. But I would agree a lot of the parts people have brought up to me are most likely still there in some capacity or another. Whether they're in good condition or not, they're still at least there. The whole debacle with Norfolk Southern and losing parts in that whole spiel in the boxcar, that did happen. Ultimately, I think that did happen. It was a miscommunication between the railway and VMT. But I do eventually think they were found. I do not know when they disappeared or when they were found, but I do have a rather gut feeling that Norfolk Southern did not just lose them and poof, they were gone. That's impossible. There's no fucking way. But that's a common misconception now that 1218 is missing a lot of things. I would say not a lot of it's installed per se. Most likely not a lot of it's installed. The locomotive can be towed. It has been shown to be towed before, back in 2015. It is very much possible to move the large fucker, but I would not say that there's not a lot inside the boiler or in the underframe itself. Probably just bare bones boiler and frame and wheel sets. That's probably about it. And what's left of the firebox and all that jazz. I would even think the fucking what do you call that? The churner that puts the coal in from the fucking tender to the goddamn firebox. I don't know what's called. It's 3 in the morning when I'm recording this part. I don't know. I'll put it up on screen. I'll probably find out later. But that's a common misconception with the 1218. I would assume, and I would pray to God that the most of the parts are still in the VMT's hands. Um, that's not for say VMT's part if they're not. I would argue that they're either lost to time or they were just too degraded to really keep around. There was no real point in keeping them at that point. Um, but at the same time, it's the 1218. They love that thing as much as they do the 611. As much as it don't seem that way, they do. So I would assume that most of the stuff is there for 1218. It's just either in storage or it's so rusted over and outdated that they actively could not put it back in there if they wanted to. That's the mechanical reason why I think that will not happen and will have to require a railway to stand in, no matter what railway it is at this point. Knowing the toss up of, you know, Norfolk Southern and Union Pacific doing their weird spiel right now. But um, I would say it's not, nothing's ever impossible, right? At the end of the day, nothing's ever impossible. But from a mechanical standpoint, for the 1218 in particular, that's a very difficult task, depending on what's there and what isn't. If a lot of it's there at the VMT and can be reused, that's a lot less problematic than I would say a lot of it there at least and not being able to be used because of its condition. I would argue it's the latter, that a lot of it's there and it's just in such poor condition it cannot be used. So yeah, that's my personal thought on that. I'm not too entirely sure what's there and what isn't. I've never bothered VMT about it. All I did was go there and see the locomotives. You know, I was a general tourist. I wasn't there for work or nothing. You know, and yeah, just basic. I was there for basic shit. I wasn't there to harp on them about 1218. That's not my job. That's not what I do. I go there to enjoy the locomotives and whatnot. I don't go there to, do all that. But yeah, that's my thought. Is that the parts are probably there. Just they're so degraded to a point to where they are unusable, even if they wanted to bring the locomotive back. Which, knowing a good chunk of them, they do. They would love to bring the 1218 back. They just physically cannot. And we'll get into that here shortly. VMT cannot bring the 1218 back like it did the 611. The 611 was chosen out of the two, most likely for the case of it being an easier and smaller locomotive to handle on Norfolk Southern's main trackage for the 21st Century Steam program. That is ultimately my thought process on that, and probably why the 611 was chose over the 1218. Because in all reality, when 1218 is fully loaded with a full load of water and coal and is operational, it's well over 1,000,000 pounds. Any locomotive that size will crack modern rail infrastructure if given the fucking chance, including the 4014 out west. So, I think it was a good choice on Norfolk Southern's part that they chose the smaller of the two overall for the 21st Century Steam program. At the same time, though, this is a two-sided coin here when it comes to the fat fuck. It is Norfolk Southern on one hand and then VMT on the other. VMT does a lovely job in preserving their things, specifically the 611 and secondly the 1218. The rest of them, give or take. But it's mainly those two that are their pride and joys, and they damn well know it. Specifically the 611. Everybody knows where the 611's from. Everybody praises that weird looking turd. I love it to death. Of course I do. It's Norfolk and Western. Of course I love the 611 as much as anybody else. However, I will never understand as much hype around it as any other Northern in here in the U.S. It's another Northern. That's the last thing we need. I love you, 611, but Jesus. Anyways, but the 1218, it's very complicated with the history with VMT. Not in it, both in good and a bad way. Knowing what little I know internally for the VMT, when I did talk to them about their feelings on 1218. They would absolutely love to bring this locomotive back like they did 611. I know they would. That they would kill to do that. The problem is that it's not so much an internal HR issue with VMT like we've seen in the past. It's not really that. Not when it comes to the locomotives and restoring them. That's not really what that is. What the problem is that VMT is so undercut when it comes to a bunch of different factors, when it comes to most likely funding, out of all things, because they actively struggle to even support the 611 by themselves, much less if they did the 1218. Most of that is financially. I would say a lot of that is just a lack of manpower, more so, because if they really wanted to, they could get the funding for both locomotives. They could do the fire up campaign all over again. It would bloody work. But I think it's both a financial and a manpower issue. A lot of people that are in the railroading space are not there for the steam locomotives like they used to be. Not in the capacity like it used to be, at least. This is not the 1970s and 80s no more. Sadly, it's not that. They're not in capacity like it used to be. As much as I would love for it to be that way, we're just not in that time frame no more. It's 2026, for Christ's sake. Okay? Even Union Pacific, that owns their own locomotives, barely lets them out to play at a yearly basis. Okay? That's I mean, it's not like it used to be. It just isn't. It's so expensive to run these things. It's extremely expensive to maintain them. I do know that for a fact. Running is one thing. Maintaining is a whole nother dog. It's a dog nobody wants to fight, not even the VMT. The VMT is just having issues more so than Union Pacific ever would, because in all reality, VMT half owns the 611 and 1218. They own half custody of the locomotive. Overall, at least that's, well, timeout. At least I think this is how this operates. I'm not going to confirm or deny this. This is totally speculation from this point on. Just bear with me. I think when it comes to both the 611 and the 1218 specifically, they're in half custody of those locomotives. Norfolk Southern owns the other half. I.e., if Norfolk Southern wanted to take those two for themselves, by God, they could do it, is what I'm getting at. The problem is, Norfolk Southern has their head so far up their ass that they're about to get merged into by the Yellow Bellies out west. That's a story for another day. But, sorry, that was a little side tangent. But, yeah, I think it's half custody with both those locomotives. I especially think that for 1218. I would say I know so for 611, because they have to ferry the 611 anywhere it goes when it goes to run at Strasburg or the Shenandoah Valley or whatever the hell it runs at. They have to ferry it. So I would assume that's half custody for that one anyways. I would also assume the case is the same for 1218, which you would think streamlines things if things ever went good for that locomotive, until you realize how Norfolk Southern handled it back in 1985 to 1987. See, when you restore a steam locomotive, and this is just any size locomotive, it could be a little 440, it could be the fattest fucking locomotive on the planet called 4014. It's supposed to operate pretty normally after you restore it. And or at least during testing, it should operate normally. And if it's during testing you have a problem, you take it back to the drawing board and you fix it. Because, you know, these things are pushing 70, 80, 90, some even 100 years old. And they're grandpas and grandmas. You got to take care of them like they're grandpas and grandmas. So things are prone to breaking. Of course, that's the case. But you think you would test the locomotive before you sent it back home to its birthplace. Look at 1987. They did not do that with 1218. They finished it in Irondale, I think, if I remember correctly, did one test with the locomotive. Found out it was just perfectly fine, according to their test, and then sent it home to Roanoke. On the way, it broke. I forgot exactly what broke. It's not reaching my core memory right now. I'm still medicated from the ear stuff going on, so I can't really think straight. But, well, hell, when can I ever think straight? That's besides the point. Um, but something broke about midway up, and they had to stop overnight to repair it. It was a minor thing. It wasn't anything detrimental to the locomotive that would absolutely keep it out of service. But you would think that early into its career, you wouldn't have something at all really break that easily. Which is why I've always vouched my feelings about the 1218 needing to stay away from Norfolk Southern's hands as much as fucking possible. Even though I know that's the only real outcome that locomotive will ever have a chance at seeing steam again. But Norfolk Southern's different now. They're a lot stupider now, but they're different. They could really use the PR, but that's besides the point. But it's back to VMT. VMT wants to do it. I know they want to do it. I've said that for years. They would kill to do that. It's just they're struggling on their own to prop up the 611. If they had the both of them, they would go bankrupt, and all of us know it. They're not Norfolk Southern. It's not the city of Roanoke. It's them by themselves. And while they have some propping up from the city of Roanoke because they're within the city limits, sure. And some propping up from Norfolk Southern every once in a while when Norfolk Southern can get their heads at their ass. That's about it. Everything is based off their merch and their donations, like most other museums are. The only problem is most other well, I'm gonna say small, but they're not really that small. Most other museums, about the same size as VMT, that have steam locomotives, most of their steam locomotives are not the size as a 484 and a 2664. Most of the time, they barely break the size of a 282. That's where the difference lies. That's why TVRM is so successful, because they have such small locomotives compared to the 611 and 1218. They don't, although they mechanically have to do the same amount of work to them, they're overall smaller and a lot cheaper to operate and maintain due to their rather small statures compared to a 484 and damn sure a articulate 2664. So that's where the problem ultimately lies, is that they are too big for what the VMT is trying to do. And they're barely scraping together what they can for the one, much less the other. That's what people don't realize as much as I wish they did. And I think VMT, ultimately, if they do see this, can probably vouch for that. Is that they're trying their best to prop just one of these up and keep it going. It would be hell to try to do to both of them. And it'd probably be a death sentence, to be honest with you. That's the reason that VMT will not do it as of this current moment. They physically cannot. That's what it is. As much as they would love to, and I know they would, and as much as it breaks my heart to hear that, I know they can't. And it hurts. It really does. I'm sure it hurts them as much as it hurts me too. They would kill to do that and have both of them operating, or at least in a operational status. But they can't. Because they physically just can't do it. They barely can do the one. And if shit keeps going south, I don't think the one will be back anytime soon. Or at least it won't run for a specific amount of time. It may be kept in operational status, but I don't know. 611's always been up in the air since the 21st Century Steam program failed. It's been up in the air ever since then, and especially since COVID. It's just been, who knows. But with 1218, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. It may happen in our lifetimes. It may happen in mine. I just don't think it will happen in the near future, unless unless a miracle happens. Then I don't think it's coming. As much as I would hate to say that, as much as I would kill for that thing to be back in Steam again and do what it was built to do. Just right now, it's not possible with the situations at hand. But I'm done ranting. I'm tired. I'm not going to sleep because I have steroids in me right now because I'm medicated. But I'm going to go and I'm going to go relax and calm down a little bit. So thank you all for sticking around for however long this video is. I don't know how long it's going to be yet. But thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you guys next time.